Okay, hello and welcome to this beautiful Vive amphitheatre. My name's Dave Haynes from HTC Vive.
And I'm Asha Easton from Immerse UK. Welcome, guys, and thank you for joining us for our final event in our series on the future of work in VR. I'm going to give everyone a little background to Immerse UK for anyone who's new or this is your first event with us. Immerse UK is the largest network of immersive tech professionals in the UK, and we work in partnership with the government and various government organizations to help to grow the industry and to help make the ecosystem a little less fragmented. We're really, really proud to be putting on this series with Dave and HTC Vive because they're actually one of our founding members. And this has been a bit experimental for us. It's the first time that either of us are putting on these events in VR. And it's been a great journey and really, really interesting. I'm going to let Dave talk a little bit about the series and what we've kind of covered to date.
Yeah, so in case anyone wasn't able to join us for the first two, we had the first one all about remote work and collaboration, which is very topical, under today's conditions. Second one, we had some great guests talking around spatial design, a really, really up and coming use case in VR. And then today we're going to be focused all about training and training the next workforce. And I think this is a really important topic for us because Vive is at the center of an ecosystem of different partners and content providers that are helping all of the enterprises train the future workforce. So you can see it really ranges from something like Flame Trainer, who provides training for firefighters, all the way through to something like Fundamental Surgery, who's training surgeons. So it's a really, really diverse topic. We're only going to scratch the surface today, but we have a really great lineup. So first of all, you're going to hear from Amy Peck, who joins us from San Francisco. Amy's in our enterprise team. And then after that, we're going to break into short product presentations from three of the solution providers we brought up today. So Innoactive, Bodyswaps, and Fundamental Surgery. After these, we're going to go into a panel where we can kind of go a little bit deeper into the topic of training, some of the challenges and some of the opportunities. And then we're going to break into questions and networking. So I'm going to hand over to Asha just to explain a bit more about how that will actually work.
Yep. So we're going to have the Q&A live here with everyone in the amphitheater. But for everyone who's watching on YouTube, you can actually pop all your questions in the comments, and we're going to have someone who's actually in a headset in the amphitheater monitoring the comments, and they'll ask the questions on your behalf. But then we will cut the YouTube feed for the networking because it's probably a little bit boring for people to kind of watch people in the amphitheater network. But everyone who's in here, stick around for that.
Yeah, great. And, I'm not going to do the full, sales pitch today. Hopefully you're familiar with our lineup of great products. But if you are interested in talking to us about these, or if you're interested in, seeing how we do business together, there are a number of other people in the audience from the Vive team and also from our sales team. So feel free to come and find us afterwards, and we would love to talk.
Yeah, great. So thank you, guys. We're going to welcome up our first presentation for the day, and that's Amy Peck from HTC Vive. So come on up, Amy.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. I am Amy Peck. I am the Senior Director of Enterprise Content at HTC Vive. And today I want to talk about the future of work getting to the new normal. So we have an opportunity now to really rethink work, workforce, workspaces. And so in thinking about that, what is the future of remote work, collaboration, physical and virtual space, and of course, I think actually one of the most important components, the human factors. So when we're thinking about remote work, we've had an opportunity now, and unfortunately under the circumstances of COVID-19, but we have the opportunity now to kind of look at what it means to have an effective home office. So for example, I was on a call this morning, just a regular Zoom call, and of course I could hear one gentleman's dog sort of barking incessantly. And though it's been sort of interesting to hear sort of the sights and sounds of people's lives that you don't normally get a glimpse into at work, if we are going to continue with remote work, we have to be able to find ways to sort of mitigate distractions, to be able to have really a truly, productive workspace at home. And then once things do start to get back to normal, I mean, last year, I think I must have done 200,000 miles. And, how can we really create a truly mobile office, right? I think I've really perfected working out of hotel rooms and finding quiet corners at conferences. But I think we have an opportunity also to look at how we can really take all of these tools with us, especially now that we're bringing, immersive into the equation. And then what are the remote tools that we're going to need to be able to stay communicating, to collaborate and sort of continue our workflow? Will that be virtual desktops? Will that be myriad collaboration tools, design tools? Like what is the evolution of the software that's really going to enable remote work? And then, of course, we have an opportunity again to look at this unique scenario, to look at productivity metrics for remote work, right? We've had everybody home now for anywhere from 6 to 8 to 12 weeks for some people. And so, how has that affected productivity across different business units? And, where has productivity actually increased? And where has it decreased or remained the same? And it'll be very interesting to look at that data to be able to leverage how we move forward. I think we're in an interesting time right now. So let's look at collaboration. I mean, effectively, this is a collaboration platform, and we also have a collaboration platform at Vive that's in beta that we're using for just for meetings. It's really designed for small team meetings. But what do those virtual meetings look like, and how can we collaborate more effectively? Certainly, iterative design as well. Manufacturers, product designers can all meet in virtual environments and, of course, be able to work on 3D designs. And one of the overarching topics here, training, learning, development, now we have an opportunity to really continue training at remote locations. And then, of course, we have the ability to share data. We have the ability to share data from within these environments, but we also have the ability to track the data from within these environments to measure the efficacy of all of our remote work. And then physical and virtual space. So when we go back to work, our office configurations are very likely to be changing. So what does that look like? What does personal office space look like? And then what do shared spaces look like? And then, of course, we have this opportunity to have hybrid physical and digital spaces, right, where you might be able to have people coming in. We're not far from being able to appear, in real life as holograms. So I think this is an opportunity for us to really prepare for that. And the most important aspect of that is being able to seamlessly integrate the physical and the digital. Very much like it's very easy for us to put on a headset and come into this environment. We need to be able to enable that into all of our physical and digital interactions. And then, of course, I think this is the most important piece of it, human factors. Right? And actually, this is from Vive Immersive Labs. And I'm not suggesting that we turn our offices into a giant aquarium, but we forget that the workforce are users, the workforce are consumers, we're people, right? And so, what does that user experience look like? And how do we create a real virtual culture? And what are the rules around that? And one of the things that's been hard to replicate is those sort of happenstance meetings, what's referred to as, water cooler meetings, or, when you just happen to be in the kitchen together making a cup of coffee and you have a casual conversation. How can we replicate that in these virtual and remote working instances? And I think now that we have some time back, we have 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 hours in many cases of time that we've gotten back. So instead of filling that with just more busy work, how do we build in time for personal growth? And how can we make our working environments and our new working paradigm engage and inspire? Inspire us just personally, but also as workers and, our productivity within the workplace. So how will we define the new normal, right? So we really have an opportunity. It's been born out of an incredibly challenging and difficult time for all of us. But I think we can look at it as a positive opportunity. And how will we leverage technology to be able to enable exponential growth? So this was actually a report from 2 years ago. And also from our Vive Immersive Lab. So we've been thinking about this for a very long time. And, when they did some testing on, using VR in the office for work, over 95% of those who were canvassed believe that they were very effective, more effective, or as effective in using VR tools. And less than 5% believe that there really was no effect. Right? So we are here now, and we really have this opportunity to bring immersive into this landscape. And so what are sort of the practical elements? We'll focus on use case. And we're going to be hearing a lot about training, because we know that training is one of the #1 use cases. But again, if we focus on this sort of horizontal approach, these kinds of applications can be used by most companies and across multiple business units within any company. So training, collaboration, which is what we're doing now, and there's a tremendous demand for that we're seeing. And then, of course, design and visualization. So now really is the time to reinvent work, right? So let's validate today what's working today, but let's really envision tomorrow, right? What is our workforce going to need? What are our products and services? What do those look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road? I used the Steve Jobs example that no one was asking for the iPhone, right? So we have this opportunity to sort of get in front of what customers are asking for and what our workers are asking for, and actually deliver products and services and experiences and workflow tools that we haven't even imagined yet. And then when we envision those, we actually work backwards from the future towards that end. It's a lofty idea, but I think we're here now and we have an opportunity to redefine all of this. I lost my last slide, but it was just a slide saying thank you. Thank you so much for joining me.
All right, excellent. So put your hands together and a kind of virtual round of applause for Amy. Next up to the stage, I'd like to introduce Christophe from Bodyswaps.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I hope you're having a good day. I'm the co-founder of Bodyswaps, a VR platform for soft skills training. And what I want to do today is 2 things. 1, I want to guide you through our latest case study. And 2, I want to make an exciting announcement. So let's start with the case study. The case study today is Safeguarding VR. So Safeguarding VR is a Bodyswaps experience that we created for the NGO sector, more specifically to help aid staff train on how to handle difficult conversations with survivors of safeguarding incidents. So first, I want to give you a little bit of context about what led to this experience. The context is this: systematic sexual abuse around the world, in the world of NGO, in refugee camps, but also often in offices. So that was really a wake-up call for the industry around the need to do something globally to train NGO staff on that topic. And so our first work really was to go to the root of what happens here. And what happens here is that abuse thrives under 2 conditions: when victims are afraid to speak out and when those in power do not listen. So what we did with our client at first is to absolutely not talk about VR and instead really talk about behavior. So what you see here is essentially a mind map. We mapped in yellow post-its the people involved in an incident: survivor, observer, act. Then the second column is about desired behavior. So the desired behavior, we wanted to break the culture of silence, was for observers to be confident to report. And then you have the obstacles to that behavior. So the obstacles would be: I would lose my social status, the perpetrator is a friend, I don't know the rules, etc. And that's really a groundwork of everything we do. Based on that, with our client, the Humanitarian Leadership Academy, we identified a 2-way strategy. Firstly, knowledge. So, people need to know the rules, and that's perfectly well done with e-learning. But secondly, importantly, to break that culture of silence, it is about practicing conversations with survivors of safeguarding incidents. And so that's why we created that Bodyswap scenario. So here's how it works. First, you're going to observe Susan, in black in the right here, have a conversation with Mary, and disclosing something that has happened to her. And Mary's doing everything wrong. You're learning by seeing bad behavior. Then you're going to have a conversation yourself with Susan, asking question, and finally providing an intervention. So intervention, in your own words, using your own body language, you are going to tell Susan why you think what she told you is worth reporting and what's going to happen next. Once you're done with your intervention, you press the Bodyswaps button and you find yourself in Susan's body, listening back to yourself or an avatar of yourself that has your voice, lips moving, and your body movement. And so you listen back to yourself saying what you just said. You get impacted by yourself. How does it feel to be on the other side? And then finally, you access behavioral analytics and conversational AI analytics to give you personalized feedback to improve. So obviously, measuring performance was important. So we did that with launch partners, Save the Children, the UN Agency for Refugees, and the International Labour Organization. We found that 89% of learners had a significant boost in confidence to apply those skills after just one simulation, so about 15 minutes. 93% of learners wanted to recommend their training experience to their peers, and 85% of the learning professionals we showed the experience to would like to roll it out further in the organizations. So now let's have a look at a short teaser for the experience.
I wanted to talk to you because I have a problem.
Why did you not tell your husband when this thing first started?
If I had, he would have stormed into the office.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. And now for the exciting announcement I promised. I wanted you guys to know, and you are the first to know, that we are releasing the first off-the-shelf library of simulations as early as next week. So for the first time, those simulations will be accessible to any organization on a license basis. And that's going to be active listening, clear communications, and gender inclusion. Time is running out, so if you want to know more, we have a white paper on our website. You can scan that QR code or visit bodyswaps.co. And if you want to talk to me about working together or about what we do, my address is at the bottom left here, or you can reach out via the website. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye.
Excellent. Let's have another big virtual round of applause for Christophe from Bodyswaps. Thank you, Christophe. And let me welcome up to the stage Daniel from Innoactive.
Hello friends, my name is Daniel. I'm founder and CEO of Innoactive, and we are a Munich, Germany-based VR company making VR training scale. So our mission is to build an open ecosystem for virtual reality training, because we believe that this is not a task for just one company out there. And what we do is we develop great rock-solid software tools which are solving common problems. For example, the standardized creation of VR training content, but also the deployment and user engagement. But you also see it as our task to bring people together who are working towards rolling out VR training in their organization to learn from each other. So, for example, we are having a VR training summit, a virtual one, this week with great speakers from Volkswagen Group and other great partner companies out there. We do have also a growing partner network, which is there to create virtual reality training content and to integrate our software products into large organizations. So our flagship product is the Innoactive Creator. It's a tool to develop standardized VR training content. It's built directly into Unity. I can show it here. It's available as a free open source license, as a community edition. It's open for contributions, and we are really working very hard to set the standard to create process-based trainings inside Unity in this open source approach. We're also having other products, web services, which are solving other problems, for example, Innoactive Portal. And I want to give a customer example here. So Linde is a worldwide gas manufacturer located in Germany, and they had the challenge that they had already great VR training content from a VR studio from Netherlands, from Infinity Labs, and they wanted to deploy this to their customers and their users out there. And with the portal, they were able to just upload the VR training content and VR training applications there, and publish this with the Linde brand, and to create the Linde Virtual Academy out of it in just a few weeks of time. And now we're working with them to find out how to use the creator tool to standardize the creation of the next subsequent training modules. So if you are a VR studio out there, if you are a system integrator, if you are a large enterprise customer who is willing to go big with VR training, then talk to us, and let's team up to make VR training scale. Thank you.
Okay, so put your hands together for a great presentation there from Daniel. And now switching topics to training surgeons, I want to welcome up Richard from Fundamental VR.
Hi everybody, my name's Richard Vincent, and I'm the co-founder and chief exec of a company called Fundamental VR. And we're working at the intersection of immersive technology and the use of haptics to create a platform that we've called Fundamental Surgery. Now, that's teaching surgeons around the world how to perform procedures, how to improve their skills, and doing that in a safe, repeatable, and cheap way. And I'll show you how that works. You can see some examples of it up here on the screen at the moment. Now, Fundamental Surgery is really made up of a multimodal approach to education. So multimodal, lots of different modalities that people can use. Here on the left-hand side, you can see what we call our haptic VR system. This is virtual reality plus kinesthetic haptics that together allow us to create the muscle memory and the indicators that tell a learning surgeon how to perform and when to change and adjust their move. The interaction with tissue, with tools, within a surgical environment, allowing them to learn, which is really important because over 50% of surgery, often you can't see what you're doing, so you're relying on that sense of touch, on the ability to feel and interact with that patient. Complementing our haptic VR system, we have what we call at-home VR. So this is using the new class of standalone headsets and all-in-one headsets, so untethered. That means that you've got the flexibility of doing your education on the move. You can use it at home, you can use it in a hotel room, wherever you want to use it. It works very well. And for us within our platform, we see that very much as a companion product to the core haptic VR system. The at-home VR system will allow you to go through all the education content and go through the procedure and collaborate with lots of other people, but there's a limit to how far you can take that without the real true sense of haptics that you get from the first of the systems I talked about. Continuing within the platform, we then have mobile and web, so you can interact with different pieces of content and knowledge bases within that environment. And all three of these are all feeding to the final element you see there on the right, which is our data dashboard that delivers a learning pathway that shows how education is developing someone's skills and their knowledge and how they're progressing over time, showing safety, allowing them to understand compliance as well as true skills. Now, the Fundamental Surgery platform, as I said, multimodal education, the four key elements to it is that it's future-proof, We are hardware agnostic, and we allow our customers to know with confidence that whatever great manufacturers like HTC produce, it will work within our product suite. The latest eye tracking, for instance, has already been adopted within the platform, as have the all-in-one headsets, which I'm sure many of you are wearing today. It's the only platform that's accredited by bodies such as the Royal College of Surgeons in London or the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons over in the US. And this is a key thing because it tells institutions and doctors that this is a quality product that will actually deliver CME or CPD education points for them. The platform also delivers third-party content, so we don't build everything that's on the platform. If there's great education content that surrounds the simulation, we're very happy to deliver it and make it part of the system. And finally, the system is what we call multi-user. So it will allow multiple people to come together, as you can see here in this still, into one operating environment and enjoy the collaboration that comes with understanding a patient case and going through that process. So let me show you a quick video now of this in action. This is a quick video of our multimodal system. So there you see it all in action under the platform Fundamental Surgery that's working today in many countries around the world. This is now a quick overview of and this is the last thing I'm going to show you, a quick overview of our multi-user system in action. And you can see here a number of surgeons within this clinical environment. We have unlimited users available within this environment, coming in via tethered or standalone devices or through desktop. All collaborating within this setup. Now you can see here this is a guided session coming from London, I believe. Yeah, London, but with surgeons joining from around the world, all interacting, talking through the case, discussing the case here, examining X-rays, doing anatomical identification with these overlays that have been placed onto the patient now, allowing them to all move on and really learn from the experts available who may not be able to travel to their environment at any one particular time. This is mass multi-user surgical training, which we're really excited about. There's lots more I could tell you, but I think I've probably gone on for long enough. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope that gave you a good insight into what we're doing at Fundamental VR and with our platform Fundamental Surgery. Thank you and have a great rest of the show.
All right, excellent. Thanks for some great presentations. Now we're going to switch modes a little bit and we're going to go into the panel. So I'm going to welcome up the panelists and Asha to the stage.
All right, welcome back to the stage, guys. Thank you so much for those presentations and for joining us here today. Let's just dive straight in. My first question for you guys is, for those less exposed here to VR training, what are some of the benefits of training in VR, and how do you measure ROI?
Yeah, it's a great question. Shall I go first?
Yeah, jump on in.
I think some of the key benefits for virtual reality training is really about creating repetition and scenarios that you can't necessarily do in the real world. So as I was explaining in my presentation, we work in surgical simulation, and that's inherently difficult to do in the real world without causing damage to individuals or having very expensive training scenarios. So in virtual reality, we can create that very simply, and then we can allow people just to continue to rehearse and practice and iterate around those skills, building confidence, building confidence. I think ROI, then you start to then line it up against traditional training methods. It can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for a one-day training scenario in medical. So against that, it quickly stacks up.
Yeah.
And so on the side of soft skills, it's similar. It's the value of practice. So if you're trying to learn, say, emotional intelligence, learning it on video is about as useful as learning how to swim on PowerPoint, right? You need, it's about changing behavior. So that's what VR is fundamentally. It simulates the water, right? It simulates those a social scenario, and so you allow people to practice because only practice changes behavior, and they can practice at the point of need, anytime, anywhere. But more than this, you can do things in VR that you simply cannot do in reality. So in the case of Bodyswaps, as I explained, going inside someone else's body to see yourself back is just simply not possible in reality. So we need to think beyond just making it cheaper, but we have to make it a lot better. And in terms of ROI from this cost, of course, you learn faster in VR than in the classroom, so therefore you save a lot of money. But more than this, for soft skills, the levels of confidence are 3 to 4 times higher when you learn in VR than in e-learning, for example. And it's that confidence to apply things in real life that bridges that gap between training and the real world.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I actually think it's also great too to have all of these sort of different types of training being covered, because that's, I think, one of the we've known the benefits of virtual reality training. The military has been using it for many years, and as well as heavy industry. But looking at object-based learning, process learning, soft skills training, really the use cases are endless, and almost any company can leverage virtual reality training in some regard, and generally through multiple processes. And as far as ROI, there are so many different ways of measuring, but just in terms of safety training, it's hard to sort of backfill those metrics with hard ROI. But knowing that you're saving lives and being able to, again, to Richard's point, replicate scenarios you can't replicate in real life. And especially with, you look at heavy industry working on an oil derrick. Just talking yesterday to the Western District Firefighters Association, having to put firefighters through real burns and test burns in facilities dealing with real fires. And there was a loss of life earlier this year, with a firefighter dying in a training exercise. So these are some of the again, that you can't necessarily measure what the ROI is, but the safety of your workforce, especially in dangerous environments, is really
it's immeasurable. Really, yeah.
Exactly.
That's a great point. Can you have any?
Yeah, let me add on this the ROI calculation, because I think this is very crucial if you want to invest in VR to calculate this. So as we are working for the automotive industry, for example, of course they have to make a business case for investing in VR training. And the interesting thing is that, for example, only by calculating in this special case the travel costs and travel time being saved is already creating a positive business case out of this. So this was very interesting because this actually can be measured, because you know how many people have to travel to the training locations and how much travel time is involved. And then you get a positive business case.
That's awesome. I'd also like to give you guys a chance now to share one of your big success stories for your companies, and come to the feedback that you've gotten from your clients. Chris, want to jump on in? Go for it.
Yeah, let's swap things around a little bit. I guess our most recent success was what I presented before, so safeguarding VR. So everyone's seen the presentation, so I'm not going to do it again, but the idea really was to enable people remotely and transform behaviors in a way that it's not that we cannot do it in real life, is that we shouldn't. So having conversation with survivors of incident, it's not the kind of conversations that you can learn on the job and mess up, I'll be better next time around. So those are topics that are too important. And
they're kind of the
comes to mental health and
Yeah, so they're just the kind of conversations that you want to be few and far between, right? Let's be the ideal scenario.
Yeah, but it will happen. Like we worked in a training for nurses in psychiatry as well. And most students in psychiatry, when they're going to first be placed in hospitals, by definitions they have no experience, and they're also not supervised because there's a lack of money. And so you have 20-somethings roaming around the corridors of psychiatric hospitals, having interactions with suicidal and schizophrenic patients. These are not conversations you want to mess up because there's just too much at stake. And so with VR, we can do that safely, but it's the flight simulator all over again. That's all it is. But it's important to think that we're not talking about a new value proposition. We're talking about a value proposition that is 50-year-old, but we now have hardware that is 1,000 times cheaper. A flight simulator is like £1 million, right? Yep. So we're just extending that value proposition to a lot more things.
That's fantastic. Daniel, go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to add a point because you said just flight simulators, right? So I'd like to contribute an example from the aviation industry. And you have, as you know, the aviation industry is a very low margin business. But there are a lot of use cases for virtual reality training. For example, on the apron to teach the people how to bring a plane in a safe way from the roll field to the gate. And the challenge is that the VR training content creation is very expensive. So as I have presented, so we used our creator tool to lower the cost of content creation to below in the ballpark of like a small 5-digit number per training module. And what for example the Munich airport and Frankfurt airport did is they invested in VR content and created a platform to share this VR content with other airports to even increase the ROI and bring the cost down. And now they're onboarding more and more airports on this aviation hub. So we are providing the infrastructure to make it possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Richard, do you have any success stories you want to add?
No, that's a great example. Yeah, I guess so. So we do soft and hard skills within the environments that we train in. I think probably one of my favorite stories is we often teach at the early stages of someone's surgical residency. But I had a surgeon actually here in the UK who came back to us recently and explained that he'd been involved in over 500 hip replacements, and he'd been doing them for many years. And in our virtual training system, he'd been able to do for the first time a slightly different approach, something that he'd known about for a while but had never had an opportunity to try because he's always with a real patient and the risk factor is too high. He could try it in our environment, tried it several times, adjusted his technique, and then took that straight back into the operating theatre and reported immediately an improvement in the way that he was dealing with those patients. And that's a great tangible transfer straight across.
Do you know, like, if he hadn't had that tool to use, like, how long would it have taken in like a process of like typical training to enable that change to be made? Like, it would have had to have gone through.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. On one side, you could say he may never make that change because he had a technique that was working. It just wasn't working as well as the other one. How would he create the opportunity to do that? Well, he would have to have created a cadaveric training session, acquired the tools and the space to do that. That may have taken him months to arrange. He may never have got that opportunity. It's a hard one to
quantify.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you guys have any recommendations for the audience who might be interested in deploying VR training in their company on how to move from idea to POC to deployment at scale?
I can help with that. First of all, I would say that our success story at Vive is everyone sitting on this panel who are all good partners of ours. And that's our goal is to help work with our ISVs and developer partners, as well as our enterprise customers, and kind of bridge the gap and help them solve these problems and find the best products and service providers out there. And as far as starting a POC, again, I had a call right before this. We know with the customer, and that's exactly what we do. Is we talk to them about some of the challenges that they're trying to solve in their business. And I think the focus really has to be, we go back to that ROI question, Daniel, to the most sort of quantifiable ROI projects, because that's then where you get success internally, and then you're able to sell, a broader scale scope upstream after a success of the first projects. But where we sit as HTC is, I look at us as sort of the enablers. We help them kind of design scope, and then we help our customers, meaning our end users, find service providers like everyone on this panel and our other ISV partners, so that we know that these companies can really deliver a superior product and can solve some of the challenges that you're facing in your company.
Yeah, let me just jump on this. So from our perspective, as a software vendor, the key is to help the customers. From a perspective of a VR studio, you have to help the customer to get a scalable solution from an infrastructure and process perspective, because he probably will need, after the success of the first pilot, a magnitude more content or VR training content, and this needs to be possible. And you have to think how you can support your customer to make this scale happen, and also rethink your position in the market, how you can get a share of this business and help your customers to scale. And then you come to a situation where you look at the different software tools out there from a different perspective, and that's what we of course offer to work with us on an eye level. And really take our open approach and take our software to make VR scale for your customer.
Yeah, that's great. Chris, Richard, go for it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point there, Daniel. I think scale is always a challenge, but I guess as you start at the POC level, my advice would always be to put the product as early as possible into the hands of your end users and to craft it there. So building your suite, your tool set in a way that they can be involved in that iteration, and you can rapidly, classic agile development, you can do rapid iteration in the hands of your end users. We've always found that's been the most effective way to do it, with a mind to, as you said, Daniel, with a mind to the scale challenge that you'll face over the longer term, but keeping it with your customers as long as possible.
Actually, Richard, it's a good point you said though about like getting this your product into the hands of the end user, but you have to get there first. Like, what are the key stakeholders you guys have been that you need to like get to first to get the foot in the door with the technology?
Again, I think there's not too much different to the classic adoption through an organization. You've got to find your champion. You've got to find somebody who you can work with, who can be your evangelist to begin with, but you've got to quickly gather around them some of the other key decision makers that are going to be influential on pushing it through. And what we found, one of the key areas there is making sure you bring the CIO and the technology team close to the project as soon as possible, because otherwise, whether you're putting in a new email system or you're putting in a virtual reality system at scale, if you don't take those people in the technology and the IT department with you on that journey, they're probably going to block it at a key point. So winning them early and then traveling that journey with them, I think, is key. What's been your experience, Chris?
I think I wanted to take a step back to say something that's probably been very obvious for you, Rich and Daniel. That happens sometimes in soft skills is you have to have a good reason to do VR. And by that I mean I've had too many conversations with people who are, and it's great, but they are curious and they're like, oh, VR is on our technology roadmap. It's a technology to explore. And if it's just a technology to explore, you're going to do a POC. Someone at that organization is going to shine a little bit, maybe get a promotion, even an award, and then it's going to gather some dust on the shelves. I much prefer when people come to us and say, I have a problem with my leadership team. I have a problem with my D&I culture. Can you guys solve that problem with VR? Yes or no. So always start with a problem and not just jump into VR for the sake of it.
It's a really good point.
It's a really good point. Yeah. Daniel, what's been your experience?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it was very helpful to have these innovation departments at the beginning to investigate, of course, the technology. But I have to agree that that now it's coming to the business departments, and they are realizing that this is really potential to change their direct business KPIs they have. May it be in soft skills training or in the production or operational excellence. Yeah, and I would also like to add that you're right, that Richard, that of course the top management has to be involved, but also the trainers and the trainees, they are very happy to be involved in the early stage, because they are really, of course, they have to use these tools every day. And we have made the experience, and if they are integrated in day one, they are accepting this very good.
I want to move into another question, guys, because you all have very different customers and use cases. And I'm kind of wondering, are there any common threads across development for training generally? And do you have any advice that you'd want to share with maybe developers out there? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, why don't I kick off on that one? I think, again, it's really to the point you were making earlier, Christophe, that it's looking beyond the technology. It's looking at the need, what's the problem you need to solve. You can do anything with a myriad of different technologies, and VR is a great example of that. But solving the business problem, solving the need case is the essential first step. And people, it's amazing. I mean, it sounds so obvious as we sit here, but people so often jump over that point and just go, it's cool. And it's great to be cool, but if you want it to be sustainable, it needs to be more than cool. It needs to have a business impact. It needs to have a tangible return. And often that means, again, as developers and as companies working in this space, we've got to help the end customers and users identify the ROI model, which may not be financial, as you said, Christophe. It might be some other elements to it, but we've got to help find that, because otherwise continued investment won't happen.
Do you guys have any more advice around like maybe the UX of the experience and like making that simple and intuitive and easy for onboarding? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo Richard, and you talked about agile development and putting the product in the hands of the users. The reason for that is it's not because you can do it that you should do it. And I've fallen very guilty of that creative trap of, oh, I want to push this pipeline more, I want my avatar to look better, and so on and so forth. And at some point, when you give the product to the user, you have to throw your creative hat and step on it, and really take a step back and listen. And when it comes to the user experience, typically a developer would want you to have your entire UI to be three-dimensional and look like a Half-Life or something like this. The truth is, if you are training, like 60-year-old managers, they're more used to how they use their smartphone, and maybe you have to draw inspiration from that. So sometimes you have to find the right balance between what the medium can do, but where your user really is in terms of using that medium.
Yeah, it's good to get the user feedback from that, because I mean, there's such a spectrum, of people's opinions in all of this of how much they want their avatar to look photorealistic, or the people who just don't want to be a human at all, and everything in between. So some people feel more comfortable with like just the floating head and the floating hands, and it's hard to. You could come up with upon any audience, Yeah,
and it's interesting. So we have a like this. We have a multi-user environment, and that for ours, it's heads and hands only. We want people to be able to see as much of the patient as possible, and it's amazing how you can understand. You can work out who people are that outside virtual reality without seeing their faces, without seeing or hearing them talk, just with the way their mannerisms work. Even with just those parts, it can still work. So you're right. Sometimes stripping back is enough. You just need enough to be able to make that connection.
Amy, Dan, you want to?
Go for it. We've.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. Just wanted to add a very simple thing. Just use one button of the controller for training simulation, if possible. This will help the people to use it, because they are usually overwhelmed with having more than one button.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. Amy,
Well, I
other
think what Christophe and actually Daniel's just said is sort of less is more in these environments, and we forget that the levels of fluency with the technology are quite varied in all of these environments, and so we have to be able to cater to that broad range. And I think from the content perspective, something that I've just been seeing globally is that really do a sort of a market analysis of what modules are out there. I have seen 200 fire extinguisher safety training. So don't build that. Look at what the market needs. Talk to your customers, find out what their challenges are, and then help them grade. What they think is important, but what is going to make the most sense for them in terms of ROI. And so it's not just looking at the user, but really the customer. And it's our job to help identify the fastest path to success.
That's fantastic. That's great. So next I want to talk, guys, about, future looking a little bit. What are some barriers you still think are out there that need to be overcome? And also we can kind of pair this with the fact that, we can't really ignore the impact of COVID and what's going on right now. What impact do you think that might have on scalability and like maybe people getting back to VR once the wave of lockdown is over? Thoughts on that? Any pushback from customers or?
If I can start on this.
Yeah, go for it.
So COVID has been a very interesting time for us in terms of the fact that the nature of the conversations we've had is completely different post-COVID and before. And what I mean by this is, at least in soft skills, in general, there's the strategic imperative now for any company in the world to be able to be fully operational digitally. So every company in the world, if I had a digital transformation consultancy today, I would be laughing because those guys are going to get a lot of work, right? Everyone is rushing on a digital transformation because this will happen again. And when it comes to training, soft skills training, what that meant is everyone hastily substituting face-to-face for Zoom. And 2-3 months down the line, what everyone's realized is Zoom fatigue.
Zoom sucks.
And it's real, and it's not Zoom itself. It's just the nature of the virtual classroom media.
Yeah, you're right.
And so what's going to happen after the wave, and what everyone is conscious of, is we're going to look at the old world, and what was good about the old world, and there's this community feeling of being face to face for real, which is irreplaceable. And what was good about the COVID world, 100% digital, but also what didn't work. And that opens an opportunity for VR, which comes back to what we said at the beginning. There's a new technology that allows practice remotely at the point of need. And we can really reimagine what it means to learn soft skills. So yeah, in that respect, COVID has been interesting.
Even I can relate to this. Like we've had an avalanche of inquiries, even just at Immerse UK. We're not a solution provider, but from companies trying to figure out like where do we even begin and how do we start. A lot of interest in trying to create diversity in what they're doing because Zoom gets a little boring, and getting the same feedback like this might happen again, and how can we make it a part of what we do. Any other thoughts, guys, on that?
I think it's not as much to just will this happen again? I think this has been an opportunity for us to rethink how we do things, irrespective of being in a pandemic, and that work from home and remote work can work, but how do we move forward and optimize that? And I see the sense of presence in VR. And it's sort of interesting because you said, what do you think some of the barriers are? But what do you think COVID has brought about? I think what's been interesting is that we've had a deluge of inbounds on, how do we optimize training and collaboration. But what we're seeing is that now there's, the form factor has been a challenge. And, making sure, like you saw, I got kicked out because I was close to my guardian. So there's some, little technical issues that still need to be worked out. But what we're finding now is customers are more forgiving of the form factor and some of these, minor challenges because the benefits outweigh the challenges today. And we know that we're going to solve the form factor issues. We know we're going to solve the connectivity issues. and even building the infrastructure to support, cloud rendering and compute at the edge. So those are all being worked on and will be solved.
That's a really good point about people like being more. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just more open now, and there's just much more interest,
more forgiving.
open, and now the mandate is, all right, now we really have to figure out what is the new normal, right, and how do we move forward from here.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to go for it? Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to jump on the cloud streaming topic, because I really think this is obviously a topic which is not there yet, but it would help a lot, and many companies are working on this. So as we have now the tethered headsets and the standalone VR headsets, there's a high uncertainty about how to, at what time to switch to the standalone VR approach, because many companies, they have already created desktop-based VR simulations, and now they do hard with the switch. So I think having this cloud infrastructure would help, because then you could upload the desktop VR application into the cloud, and then either stream it to a standalone VR headset over 5G and edge computing, or use the same application on a desktop VR device at the same time. This would really help the return on invest calculation again, because you only need to invest once in a solution.
That's really interesting. Richard, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, Daniel. I think having that infrastructure to take it away from the headset and take it into the cloud is a really exciting new development that's going to come through over the next couple of years. I guess I was going to go back to your original question, though, in terms of the change in behaviour. So what we've seen is a gradual acceptance in the medical marketplace for the role of virtuality over the last couple of years. And then COVID hit, and it went from we should get on with that to mission critical. And the key themes there are collaboration and remote. And we want to be able to do this anywhere. We want to bring people together because we can't do it anywhere else. In China, you can't access a hospital as a visitor at the moment unless you're a patient. So I can't go in there and talk about anything other than through virtual reality.
I mean, especially in the healthcare space, I do have to ask, like, any pushback from customers around the hygiene issue of wearing headsets and sharing them for training purposes? Anyone coming across this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone have a solution? It's something I think about a lot these days.
We've certainly seen it, and absolutely. I mean, we've as have HTC, we've issued to our customers guidelines on how they should clean and sanitize. There's some great tools out there and some hardware that you can use to bathe the headset in a UV light that kills all of the germs, etc. So there's good workarounds, but it's a real concern. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In a world of PPE, a headset that you put onto your face is a concern that people need to understand and then have a process for.
Any thoughts around, or any feedback from clients around security issues for like deployment at scale with headsets? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have
Daniel?
some thoughts on this. And as these digital twins of the workplaces, which we all are creating for different industries, there are, in many cases, IP, intellectual property, and very sensitive, because there are, for example, an automotive, it might be a car parts in there, and these they need to be distributed in a safe way, and maybe even only kept within the company's IT. So this is one key requirement. And I think this is what software vendors need to address when providing solutions, especially if they are used to develop hardware and software for end users before. Enterprise security is very important.
I had a call today with a big financial services institution, and their number one concern was not performance or cost. It was the fact that, well, we're going to train people around things potentially as touchy as, safeguarding and sexual harassment, and we're asking people to speak out loud. What happens to that, to their voice? Is it recorded? Imagine if you access suddenly all the recordings of all the top 500 executive of a bank trying to do sexual harassment training. Yeah, it could be difficult.
Indeed, yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, it's the touchy one.
So definitely security is as per what Daniel said, is as soon as you move from POC to scale, it's going to become crucial.
Yeah, that's great. Guys, that was so much incredible information. I think I might just give you one last chance to, if you have any final comments that you want to bring up and share with the audience, anything valuable, and then we'll kind of wrap up with that. Go for it, Richard.
I'll kick off. I think we've talked a lot about all the different parts of VR. One thing we haven't touched on really is touch, and I talked about it a lot in my presentation around the use of haptics. Haptics is such a great part of the VR experience. This ability for us, different countries, to reach out, touch each other, do this.
I love that this buzzes at you. Yeah.
The buzzes, you get
like
that
touch someone, guys.
It just closes, doesn't it? It closes the distance, the physical distance so much. I think it's such a great part that we can't forget. And new users to VR need to experience this. You need to reach out and touch.
To be honest, you just made me feel a bit guilty here, because you're the first person I've had contact with besides my girlfriend for 8 weeks. So I feel like, what did Boris say? Are we allowed to do that or not? But yeah, it's yeah, absolutely right.
That's great. Any closing thoughts?
It's a good point, but I think also what's interesting too that we're finding we've all touched on is that it's not just training solutions, it's collaboration, it's this building the sense of presence, rebuilding a sense of community within the workforce, kind of redefining how we look at work and remote work. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and I think everybody here on the panel is very much focused on not only solving some challenges for companies, but really doing it with the user in mind. And just a little moment between Richard and Christophe, that brings us back to how we're using technology to kind of bring the humanity in everything that we're doing. And so I think that's a big opportunity that we have right now.
Yeah. Daniel, final thought, go for it.
Yeah, I've got a final thought, and I just want to refer to this situation here, so this panel. I have had my first VR headset, I think, on my head in 2014, and I have always been thinking of making something like this happen, right? So, and now it feels very natural. I've been sitting the whole day in Zoom meetings today and the last days and so on, and this feels, for me personally, obviously maybe I'm an early adopter, but it feels more natural than sitting in front of a Zoom meeting. Obviously, on the other side, there are adoption hurdles, right? Which every new technology brings with it. But somehow it remembers me of sitting in the train when having my iPhone. I was the first iPhone user in Munich, I think. And everyone looked at me, and I was feeling very strange because I had this giant phone in my hands. And now, if you are in a train, if you have a Nokia handy there, everyone looks at you again. So I think it just takes a few years, and then it will be completely normal to use these technologies, and people using Zoom will be out-fashioned, outdated.
It's a really good
and that's
point.
what excites me. I'm so happy that this is now. And I think the COVID, as bad as it is, it could be the real tipping point to bring this to everyone.
Cool. I love to end things on a positive note. That's a great point, Daniel. Thank you guys so much. You're fantastic panelists. It was a pleasure to have this chat with you guys. We're going to move now to Q&A with everyone. We're going to just jump down there, and if anyone is watching from YouTube, then Dave is going to have a little eye out on the comments, and we'll ask them for you. So thank you so guys so much. You can jump down now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
also that kind of combines with another question they ask here around if
Asha, you've cut out.
Can you hear me?
I get the first question, not the second.
Okay, I'll do the first one and I'll do the rest.
I'll do the first one about how to design soft skills training and measure it. What you do is you bring two things together. One is the latest research on adult learning design, so principles of self-reflection, exploration, and so on. And you combine that with the latest research on virtual embodiment and behavioral change. So in other words, there's a ton of research on what happens when I put you in VR in a new body and in a simulated environment. And that's how you create a format. Measuring soft skills is a lot harder because that's a transformation of behavior. So you need to involve line manager and measure basically change in the daily life after 6 months, a year, and so on.
That's great. I have another. Does anyone have one in the audience? Dave? Mohammed?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to ask about the VR at the Munich airport. Can you just provide a bit of more explanation on what does this involve and how did you roll it out to other airports?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So the challenge is that the training is of different people who are like getting ready to the job is taking a long time because the physical assets are not there yet. So what they want to do is to shorten training time and to prepare people faster on the job because time is money, right? So, and also second part is that putting people the first time on the apron directly in front of a plane is really, really frightening and lead to really stressed people, but also to damage goods. For example, they damaged a passenger bridge once because a trainee broke on the plane. And what they now decided to team up to invest together in these VR simulations. And then create a catalog of off-the-shelf content to offer this to other airports. And it is based on our technology. It's open, so it can be customized both by without coding skills, but also by code. And that's what of course, now we're talking to different VR studios who are engaged in this field, and also other airports to grow this figure.
Okay, I have another question here really quick. Am I cutting out, guys? Can you hear me?
No, you're good. You're good.
You're good? Okay. Do you work with gamification experts to make the training experiences engaging?
I don't know for which one is that, but go for it, Richard.
Oh, I think it's for all of you guys, probably.
I'll take the first run at it. Yeah, certainly in our fundamental surgery, in our development team, we have a lot of gaming experts who help to look at the way the gameplay works. Obviously, it's not a game in the sense of learning a very serious subject, but still you need to make it compelling and it to flow and it to have a natural rhythm to it that reflects the real world as much as possible. And we use a lot of gaming experts to help us put that together.
Yeah,
Does anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, we have. So as you know, we have seen our authoring tool, and there are components in it. And one of the components is a confetti shower at the end. So if the trainee has been successful, then the guy creating the simulation can opt to have a gamification element like this at the end. And this really helps to people to feel proud of what they did. And then, of course, in Bavaria, we have also beer and VR at the end, but this is obviously not for everyone, right?
Nice. Okay, let's take a question from in the room. We have Rami sitting here in the dark trousers and shirt. Go ahead, Rami,
Yes,
you're off mute.
hi,
Hey.
how are you? First of all, it's a little bit hard to hear you. I think the mic is far from you. But my question was to Daniel. You mentioned that you had brought down the development cost of environments to a 5-figure to your clients, and then you also mentioned that the airports used it to create their own environments and then roll it out to other airports. Can you please elaborate a little bit more on that, on how you brought down the price to a 5-figure, and what was the process of rolling it out to the other airports for your client?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So what we're doing is we have a template approach. So you invest one time in a template, a Unity template, which then can be used by non-developers to create the VR simulation. Obviously, it's then limited to what the template can do, but you can have all the different process variations without needing a developer for this. And this is one of the key elements. So you have to, of course, you have to invest into VR, but as soon as you know that you need a lot of different processes to train, you can invest in this template and then obviously use this to create like 50 or hundreds of different simulations, and then having them customized for the different locations, because for every airport the procedures are a bit different, so they can just delete process steps then on this, and so and this makes it easier to adopt the off-the-shelf content for the different locations without having no flexibility in there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
I have a quick one for HTC, guys, from YouTube that asks, the person says they see the skills development space in remote places being, could see a big benefit from VR. Does HTC have a strategy to make VR available in more remote areas?
I think
Big question about longer term adoption.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's sort of why, we have a standalone. It's why we work with, the telcos, and why we work, with a lot of the cloud providers, because again, it's building the architecture to be able to bring these experiences to remote areas.
Yeah, you gotta have the infrastructure first, I guess. Do you want to take another question from in here, Dave? Anybody else?
Yeah, anyone else? We have Dr. Rob. Let me just take you off mute. Hang on, bear with me. I wonder if you're a doctor as in a surgeon. Let me try and get you off mute here. Hang on. Okay. Are you off mute now? Okay, bear with us. Okay, if you take yourself off mute now. The joys of Q&A in VR.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. We got you.
All right. I was saying, hi guys. So my question is, I've been sort of demoing VR since 2016, and I guess in 2020, for a lot of the companies I'd work with, I'd say that COVID notwithstanding, it's just not there yet for group applications. And specifically to Amy at HTC, sort of where in the product roadmap is adjusting with this new reality of tons of people on their tablets using Zoom? How's HTC going to take advantage of all these people interacting in that way? Is it all about the enterprise and the big stuff, or is there plans to actually get Joe Public into this wonderful technology?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think we're exploring all manner of options. I don't think there's a one size fits all. So we're looking at, we look at Engage and all of the feature sets that Engage has. We look at other platforms. And I think what we're going to start to see is that platforms are going to start to find their lane. There are some platforms that are specific just to meetings. So they don't support this many people in an environment. There are some that are specifically for design. And I think that's where companies who are building these platforms have an opportunity. And again, starting small, with small teams who absolutely have to be able to continue work collaboratively, and especially those working with, with 3D objects. Certainly in the medical field, healthcare, we're seeing that in AEC, we're seeing that in training in physical environments. So again, I think you're right. There are some inherent challenges, but I think with all of the inbounds that are coming in and all of the interest, I think that a lot of companies now, where maybe they weren't before willing to overlook some of these shortcomings, they're willing to do some testing.
Yeah, just also to add on the consumer side and multi-user, actually we're investors in a couple of companies in this space. One is VR Chat, and I think VR Chat's been very successful of kind of, some people join it, they see it on YouTube, they join it on their desktop, and then they think, wow, I should get into this in VR. So there is a conversion path to people coming into VR through platforms like that. But also other use cases, we're an investor in a company called the Museum of Other Realities, which is gathering people around art exhibitions, which I think is a fascinating use case. And then on the gaming side as well, through Viveport, there is an increasing amount of titles coming into Viveport and Viveport Infinity. And if you look at, I don't think it's out yet. I think it's in beta, but there's a game called Hyperdash where I've now got a whole group of people, and we hook up or we meet up in Hyperdash every Friday and play some games and things like that. And you also look at platforms like Rec Room. So I think there is, it's a slow path to kind of more full adoption, but whether it's enterprise or consumer, we're there.
Can I come back on that a bit, or?
Yeah, go for it.
So that's all very good examples and stuff. I guess I'm interested in Fortnite, Animal Crossing, Minecraft, like big stuff. And I really think that there's a way to get people into this without so much friction. So if you have a continuum on one side where you've got an iPad, on the other side you've got an HTC Vive Pro, or whichever, there are points on that curve where you can access considerable amount.
Actually,
of
can I
benefit.
speak? I have one comment to make on that actually, because I kind of think that on a consumer side, I kind of think the future of gaming generally is going to be multiplayer, multi-platform, and I think it's actually today is the launch of a game I know of that was done by a company called Co-op Innovations. It's called Space Invaders, and it's exactly what it is. It's the first game that I've played that I thought was really, really impressive, and you can be on your mobile phone, a laptop, a computer, or in a headset, and it's a multiplayer game together. So that's you also saw kind of like this multiplayer, multi-platform thing with the Angry Birds game, for example, that was done by,
Resolution Games.
No, it wasn't. No, it was no, they were up in Leeds. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting their name right now. But anyway, I'm just all that to say, just that I think it's coming. It's just gonna, it's not gonna happen overnight.
But I think so some of the platforms that I did mention, I don't know if people are aware, but I mean, Engage is cross-platform, desktop, the mobile version I think may be coming soon. There's also, we're here in VR, but VR Chat is, most people join, they watch it on YouTube. They also then join on desktop, and then they come into VR, and then Rec Room as well. Works across PlayStation, mobile. So yeah, I agree with Asha, and I think it's a challenge. It would be great if the big games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, etc., were also on that path. I think they do. Most of them you can access. Like I played Minecraft and Roblox in VR, but it's just not commonplace or built in yet.
Yeah.
Amy,
also not ready for that level of participants either.
But I think you brought up Fortnite, and I think the other driver here is that we're seeing these entirely new behaviors. I think what was the Travis Scott? It was like 10 million users live. You look at Niantic, and I look at this sort of in AR, VR as being sort of slightly different drivers. But Niantic, acquiring 60 AI, to be able to have sort of real physics. So it's a bigger vision of just making this digital landscape more accessible to everyone. And cross-platform is the most important element of that.
Yeah, cool. Great question though. Asha, maybe we take one more from YouTube and then break into networking.
Sure. I have so many, actually. I don't know how to choose one. Well, one is probably convenience for everybody. Is one of the challenges for productivity in VR is text input. What do you see as an answer to this when you're in a headset?
Voice. Which
Voice to text.
no, I mean, like, being able to record and then have a voice to text mechanism. I think also we'll start to see, using natural language processing, some command codes. So we'll say, record, and then, when you wrap up a meeting, you do sort of a next steps. So to actually record that and spit it out as a list, then gets emailed to everyone. Like I've been taking photographs here, during this whole event, and that's going to now be in my folder on the desktop. So we just had to find a seamless kind of interface to be able to, record. Taking notes is huge, but also voice to text and voice commands and gaze commands. So really sort of full interaction.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, it's interesting. One of our partners, Logitech, were quite early on trying to run some experiments around VR compliant keyboards. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes in the future as all the technology increases. They also have some great VR stylus. So people doing design in VR can actually use a stylus, which is, what designers are more akin to using. But then I think two innovations that the VR industry is adopting as a whole. One is eye tracking for, not just analytics and foveated rendering, but also better and improved interactions. Another one would be hand tracking. We have our hand tracking SDK available. That's working great across the Pro Eye device that we have. And then also pass through. We've been playing. We kind of soft announced some XR stuff, VR headsets doing pass through. And I think when you're able to quickly go from fully enclosed to then being able to see your surroundings outside, that can help in productivity situations, I think. So those are all on the roadmap and things that us and others are working on.
Great. I have a bunch more questions here. I don't know if you want to go to Q&A, Dave, or to networking, but
okay, let's have a show of hands in the room. Who in the room would like to break to networking versus take some more questions?
Who would like to take and has more questions?
Let's have one more question, and then we'll go into networking.
Okay, pick someone in here, I guess. Do you want to pick someone in here or off YouTube? Go for it. There are so many great questions. Guys, please do reach out to us afterwards if you do have more questions beyond this.
Okay, Reda, you have a question?
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. My question is more for Daniel from Innoactive. Just wanted to know from your experience talking to the large corporates. Nowadays, we are seeing mature hardware and also nice solutions and software. Large corporates know much more about VR than 2 or 3 years ago. Today, in your opinion, what are the missing points or the challenges we still have to deal with to achieve global, rollout and large-scale deployments?
That's the question of the questions. Thank you for this. From a customer perspective, the large enterprise customers, they have to get the big budgets to invest in VR. So this is the question we have to help them answer if you want to get business from this, as everyone, right? Hardware, software, content, whatever. And I think it has to start with thinking about the business case from their perspective, and then find a way which really provides a way. Of course, we all beyond telling that VR training works. They have understood it. They make their POCs. Now it needs to be scalable. So think about the business case, about the cost, about the maintainability of the content, depending on the industry. So how many do they have to change the procedures very often? Which is maybe in automotive the case, maybe not. And think about how to deploy it, and then I'm not sure if you're from a VR studio or a solution provider or enterprise customer, but we can have a chat in the networking if you'd like about this.
And I want to give Richard an opportunity to answer this too, because I saw a prediction on LinkedIn today that VR training is going to be mandatory for all surgeons by 2030. What do you think of that?
I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. I think the change has been so dramatic recently. We ran a webinar about a week ago, and we asked the collected group in there, it was about 150 surgeons from the US, the UK, and across Europe. And I think, if I remember rightly, the number was somewhere in the region of 80% expected VR training to be a key part of their curriculum going forward. So I think we've used the old phrase, we've crossed the chasm. We're now into mass adoption. We just need to make that enabled for people. I think it's a natural destination, because there's so many more benefits that come out of it. It's not just the experience; it's also the data that comes through that, and from that, the analytics, as well as being able to transcend geographies.
And as you said earlier, the things that you just can't do, like for example, a surgeon practicing surgery at home, if they had that kind of option, that's not available anywhere else. So
exactly, yeah,
big opportunities.
And I think that the next stage too that we have to solve for is the systems integration, because there are a lot of complexities in terms of deploying on closed servers, private cloud, the security of the devices, managing the devices. So then it's a systems integration question. And again, at Vive, we were working with, all the major solution providers to solve those. And then, of course, the systems integrators are looking at how to be able to deploy in all of these different types of scenarios, but security being one of the primary concerns for everyone.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. It's a good point to end on. Yeah, so I was just going to say we could move to networking now. And so anyone on YouTube who's watching, we're going to go to networking. So we're going to end the live feed here. But if you have any further questions, we couldn't get to all of them. There were a lot in the comment section. So just feel free to reach out to any of us via LinkedIn. I'm sure everyone would be happy to follow up with you later. Oh, and for everyone who's in the room and wants to bring in.
We can play around with